My answer may not be considered gracious if I limit it to Nigeria. So let me expand it a little bit to include some of the countries we have around us.
Please go ahead.
Many times when you look at developing nations, one of the things that people look at is infrastructure development. People look at, oh, their universities. People look at, oh, their bridges. People look at, oh, their flyovers. People look at, oh, their superhighways and all of those. But part of the things you also find in developing nations is that their identity is still developing. So in many parts of Africa, there is that identity crisis. For instance, are we Igbos or are we Nigerians? Are we Yorubas or are we Nigerians? Are we Hausas or are we Nigerians? Are we Fulanis or are we Nigerians? And if we limit it to that just Nigeria, it will be unkind and uncharitable, because if you go to Togo, you will find such questions. If you go to Cote d'Ivoire, you will find such questions. If you go to, for instance, the Oromia region in Ethiopia, where they are having conflict, as you would know, the conflict you have in Ethiopia today is deeply rooted in identity management. It's also deeply rooted in, some of those questions around identity. And so, in fact, anywhere you study conflict in Africa, it is boiled down to two key issues: identity management and resource control. But many times both are interwoven. So if you look at, for instance, what is happening to Nigeria's Middle Belt region, you will find some elements of identity management where the people will tell you, oh, we are indigenous landowners, and these people came in speaking a language distinct from us, possibly worshipping a god distinct from the way we worship, and they want to take ownership of our lands and they want to subjugate us. So it is there for all to see, whether it is in the political circle where you feel that some parts of Nigeria feel that other parts want to dominate them. And you also have the questions around Lagos, where you would have heard some people saying, oh no, these are settlers, these people want to take over our land and all of those things. So we have not accepted wholeheartedly the concept of Nigeria as a modern state construct. People have accepted Yoruba as a construct. People have accepted Igbo, or sometimes Biafra, as a construct. People have identified Hausa as a construct. People have identified Fulani as a construct. Even more recently, people have identified Islam as a construct. But Nigeria, people have not come to identify that as a construct. And that's why you see that we are teetering on the seams, that many people are more tribal than they are nationalistic. And that's a question that until you resolve it, no matter how many skyscrapers you build in Lagos, the identity can bring them down in one night.
I mean, okay, you said something about identity crisis and identity management. I mean, for a layman, can you shed more light on it?
Oh, okay. So what we mean by identity is that for some time, like if you go through some of the commentaries, you would indeed have seen many people who would say, oh, I am more Hausa Fulani than I'm Nigerian. I will promote a sectional interest. And so when
relating more to their state than the entire country.
Yes, they are not just even the states, even within the state, because you would know that many states in Nigeria are not monoethnic. That many states in Nigeria have, many infused ethnicities in them. There are very few states that are monoethnic. In Nigeria, you can find such in the southeast, you can find such in the southwest, but apart from those few, many other states across the country, including in the core north, are not monoethnic. All right, there may be a dominant ethnic group, but it's many. So when people are suffering from identity crisis, they view public policy from the prism of their identity. So if, for instance, a Bulgarian wants to appoint someone, he wants to appoint someone from his tribe or from his region or from his religion. And so if they are designing public policies, they are designing public policies that favor them. But the unfortunate thing with that is that you're not the only person in the country. All right. So the people who you exclude will feel that sense of exclusion. The people who you don't appoint, for instance, today, I'm sure many people have heard the commentaries, especially coming from the core north, where core northerners are saying that, oh, Tinubu is moving CBN to Lagos, oh, Tinubu is giving all the appointment to Yorubas. Oh, so you want to have that sense of fairness And until you don't have that fair sense of fairness, you may not be able to build an egalitarian society where everybody feel equally treated and want to contribute equally to the development. So what you would have is that when Igbos are at the helms, if you have that identity issue, Igbos will like to favor the Igbos. When you have Hausas at the helm, they will like to favor Hausas. When you have Fulanis, they will like to favor Fulanis. But sometimes it is even beyond that. Because if it is just currying mere favor, it is easier. But the thing is that there will be suspicion of domination. That people will now say, oh, I think they want to dominate me. Oh, I think it's a conquest of some sort. Oh, for instance, you've had it in Lagos. Oh, I think Igbos want to buy up all the properties in Lagos. I think Hausas want to take up all the political appointments. So when you begin to have such conversations, it ultimately snowballs into conflicts. Now, that conflict may take 30 years in the making. Now, that conflict may take 20 or 25 years in the making. Sometimes it could take up to 50 years in the making. But if it is not addressed, it eventually comes. And that's why that as Nigeria journeys into statehood and nationhood, that it's important that political actors are cosmopolitan. Yeah, you may have been from Yoruba or from Hausa or from Fulani, but now you are elected the president of not just Yorubas in Nigeria, but the president of the Federal Republic. So you must expand yourself to fit into the new office.
Okay, so is this not the same? Not synonymous to saying using the word like low self-esteem or probably a low ethnic esteem?
Yes, it has to. I agree with you, my dear brother, that you have to also look at the worldview of the would-be leader. All right, because if you see someone who is narrow-minded, who sees things only from his perspective, and no matter, for instance, I wrote an article about a former governor of my state, Governor Willie Obiano, who is, by the way, now in EFCC Net, trying to account for his alleged mismanagement or misappropriation of Anambra resources. I did say that the governor was elected to become the governor of Anambra State, but he could not bring himself to find the difference between being the governor of Anambra State from Aguleri and being the governor of Aguleri, which is his hometown, because it appeared as if he was citing all developmental projects in his hometown to the exclusion and to the air of other local governments in the state. And if you take that same person to make him the president of Nigeria, he will undoubtedly cite almost all the developmental projects in his state. If you take that person, if there is something like a unified Africa, and you take that same person and make him the president of a quote-unquote unified Africa, he will still take and cite developmental projects in his own side of the country. And then even when you are dealing with the state, it is not just all parts of the state, it is his religious side of the state. All right, so when people are low in their thinking or low in aspiration, or when people have not yet come to the place where they find that there is a national aspiration and they now have a national office, they can sometimes reduce themselves or reduce the office. So I will indeed say that Buhari reduced the office of the president of Nigeria to a tribal office. He reduced it to a religious office. He found ways to promote his tribal interest, and he found ways to promote his religious interest, oftentimes to the disadvantage of the rest of Nigeria. And that was why you saw that Nigeria felt as if it was coming undone under that president.
Well, there's a whole lot of eye opener with this. And, former President, President Goodluck Jonathan, said that Nigeria was not yet a nation. This was, years back, about 2023. Okay, yeah, Nigeria was not yet a nation, but a state, since it was governed by rules, the constitution. And in this manner also, sometimes one those former government of the state, Kaya also said that liberal democracy was gradually falling in Africa. Personal democracy should be given a chance as a predisposition to winner takes all, which is not good for the system. The whole arrival, even the then Minister of Education, Mrs. Obi Ezekwesili, also said democracy has not failed Africa, but corrupt leaders are still in government. This brings me to a question to say that, is Nigeria a nation? Is Nigeria a nation, a state, or a nation state?
Well, Nigeria is a state, and I think Nigeria should now do away with the aspiration of being a nation. Having done it for, or having pretended to be doing it for. And by the way, what do we mean by a nation? One people, one aspiration, one goal. May not necessarily be one language, but one identity. But I can tell you for free, there is not even a northern identity now. There is an Hausa identity, there is a Yoruba identity, there is a Fulani identity, there is the Igbo identity. Look, we're not going to pretend about these issues. I think one of the things that Berlin Conference tried to do was to lump people up and force them to become one. And we have also seen in the nearly 100 and something years of that experiment that it's a difficult experiment to have. It is difficult for you to get the Hausa man to put Nigeria above his Hausa identity. It's difficult for you to get a Fulani man to put his Nigeria above his Fulani identity. I can also tell you for free, it's difficult for you to get an Igbo man to put Nigeria above his Igbo identity. I mean, there are a few people who are doing it, but the majority are tribal. All right. So instead of trying unnecessarily to build a Fox identity that is not there, why don't you try to make it, okay, you are Hausa, be fair. Remain Yoruba, but the laws are there. Remain Igbo, but the laws are there. All right. So you see it, for instance, in Switzerland. You see that Swiss cantonment system is as a result of mutual distrust. You know, in Switzerland, you study their government. They don't have the kind of government we have here, where you have a winner-take-all situation. They have a rotational presidency that rotates every 6 months or thereabouts. And that's as a result of the cantonment or the states not trusting each other. And so where you have that people are not able to submit that their identity for it to be subsumed under a larger national identity, then what you can do is set the template for fairness. If an Igbo man is there, what is the limit of what you can do to others? If an Hausa man is there, what is the limit of what you can do to others? If a Yoruba man is there, what is the limit? Can we whittle down the powers of the office of the president? And that's what you see by the agitations for regionalism. Can we whittle down the power of the person there so that if an Hausa man is there, Yorubas can develop on their own without him? If a Yoruba man is there, Hausas can develop without him. If an Igbo man is there, other parts of Nigeria can find full development without waiting for the person at the center. But the problem with the construct of Nigeria is that you have a unitary system that consolidates power at the center, but there is no single identity. So now, the whole power is in Abuja, but that power can now be made to favor the Fulanis. The whole power is in Abuja, but that power can be made to favor the Igbos. The whole power is in Abuja, but that power can be made to favor the Yorubas. And almost all the time, other people are grinding and gnashing their teeth at the corner. And when you have people in the same country gnashing their teeth at the corner, then it would not be for so long before that grinding of the teeth or gnashing of the teeth inside your house will become public manifestations of sometimes what you call insecurity. Now, if it is in the southeast, it can come in form of regional agitations for a different statehood. It can also come for agitations for Oduduwa Republic. And then in the north, it can come for a manifestation of the implementation of Sharia. Or sometimes it can manifest itself as Boko Haram. Sometimes it can manifest itself as banditry. Sometimes it can manifest itself as supposed Fulani herdsmen issue. But these are people who are eating away at the power of the center. These are people who are challenging the authority of the center. So instead of having those violent armed confrontations, why don't we decentralize power to make it so much so that even if we have an Hausa president, the Yorubas feel confident of what they can achieve on their own, irrespective of what is happening in Abuja?
Wow, this is. I was almost thinking about ethnicity in this, and sometimes they talk a whole lot about, the embarrassment of ethnicity in Nigeria, where this, like you said, this one claims to be this one claims to be that, this one claims to be this state, and therefore, we are mixing it up, we're not coming together to do this. But let me open the phone lines while I have a comment. The phone lines, the Lagos to Nigeria, in case you want to ask a question or want to make your contribution on the show. The phone line is 0802 978 8003. 0802 978 8003 or 0802 502 7711. 0802 502 7711. You can also reach us on 0705 890 4927. 0705 890 4927. We also have the Executive Director of Africa's Morning Center for Public Policy. Good Chima, Christian in the house. They have their phone lines. All right, quickly, let's talk about this governance system, which is patterned after this monarch tendencies rather than through civil democratic processes. We run the affairs of the state that see the leaders as king with absolute power. Before I come to that, let's take this forward. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Can you hear us? Please, can you be audible a bit so we can hear you? All right, Monday from Lagos Island. Please make your question or your comment. Please be audible a little so we can hear you. All right, go ahead. Hello? Hello? Oh, please call us back. He was talking about tribalism in Nigeria, but I didn't get one there. The phone lines again. Guess you didn't get that. 0802 978 8003. 0802 978 8003. Or 0802 502 7711. 0802 502 7711. An alternative number you can also reach us is 0705 890 4927. 0705 890 4927. Don't forget you can also reach us on the WhatsApp. You know, to send your message via WhatsApp. 0705 6900 927. 0705 6900 927. Okay, I got the caller. You talking about the tribalism. Okay, let me just put it out there to Chima. Okay, Chima, before I come to what we were saying before the caller called, our caller talking about tribalism in Nigeria. Is that what is eating up the system? Is that why we tend to? Okay, is that why we tend to question the issue of ethnic hate, bigotry, despite all the attempts for unity? Is that what is eating us up?
Well, I don't want people to come off with the impression that something is wrong with Nigerians or that something is wrong with Africans. It's just a general human condition, all right? In developed so-called advanced democracies, you will find incidences of racism in England, or if you're looking at English football, it is there.
I mean, there's so much about other countries. Let's talk about Nigeria. But before then, let's pick this call. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. All right, okay. I mean, I was saying if you're talking about England, this is Nigeria.
No, but because if you have an unworkable idea, you might think that.
Hello, good morning. We're having an issue with the calls today. Hello, good morning. What's the name where you call it from? Please, can you reduce the volume on your radio set, please? Okay, we can still hear ourselves. Please reduce the volume on your radio set, or just maybe walk away from your radio set. Okay. Are you hearing me now? Yes, go ahead. Yeah, sure. So, in the state of how Nigeria will get adapted, this is the tribalism in Nigeria is what making what is happening now in this nation. That instead of promoting promoting, this is not from my plan. It will not govern Nigeria. Even if this is not from my district, it will not govern Nigeria. That has been a problem in this country. So maybe the person from your tribe does not know how to manage the situation. Then just because it's on your place, let them be there. So and that is why Nigeria is going down. So what percentage we can grow above a 250? Then and focus on this thing on the who can do Nigeria better, who can move better.
person is not from our place, he cannot do that. Is nothing good.
All right, thank you very much. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. All right, I don't know if you get that, Chima, did you get that from our caller?
Yes, I got that. And my point is to say that there is nothing wrong with Nigerians or there's nothing wrong with Africans. That identity is a human condition. If you looked at the early apostles of Jesus Christ, take Peter for instance, he couldn't get himself to preach to the Gentiles because he felt he was superior to them. He couldn't eat like they do. They eat dirty things. He doesn't eat dirty things. If you look at America, it is there today. Out of all the many experimentation of America, they've only had one black president, and that black president was still heckled by a section of the population until he left office. And only God knows when you will get next person that will look like him to become the president of America. Look at what is happening in Britain. Can you get a Welshman or an Irishman to lead Britain? So the identity. So I don't want Nigerians to be working hard on things that doesn't exist. There is nowhere, even with education. You see, many of the ethnic bigots we see in Nigeria are not even the uneducated people. They are the professors. These are people who have 3 PhDs. These are people who have studied outside of the country. Yet, you cannot educate them out of their bigotry. There are some people in Italy or in Britain or elsewhere in the world, you can't educate them out of their ethnicity. So it takes a high level of education that you will achieve what this man is talking about. Because during the elections, Yoruba man will speak Yoruba.
Let me move you there, Elizabeth. We'll have a caller also. Good morning. Hello. I can hear you. Please go ahead. Please lower down the volume. Reduce the volume on your radio set, please. Okay, we lost that call there. Please go ahead.
So why don't you stop trying to achieve an impossible? I mean, what he's saying will be nice, but I'm telling you, during the elections, a Yoruba candidate will speak in a manner that will rile up his Yoruba ethnic base. An Igbo man will come back and speak to his Igbo base. An Hausa man will come back and speak to his Hausa base. So that's a human condition. And so far people can manipulate their way into public office, they will want to manipulate their way into public office, right? So that is the same thing with Americans. When they want, they can rile up their bases. That basis may be basis of people who are pro-abortion, pro-life, pro-this, anti-abortion, anti-this. So people always want to identify with their base. So instead of looking for impossible feats to achieve, why don't we make a rule-based system that no matter, even if you are Yoruba and you got in with Yoruba votes, no problems, but there is a limit to what you can do. So can we whittle down the influence of public office holders, especially as to making it outrightly unlawful, not just recommending national, for instance, character principle, but can we make it outrightly unlawful for a Yoruba president to do certain Yoruba things? Can we make it outrightly unlawful for an Igbo president, for instance, to do certain Igbo things? Can we make it outrightly unlawful, an impeachable offense, so that even while you have the tendencies to favor your people, you don't simply have the opportunity? For instance, look at Sadiq Khan, who is the Prime Minister of UK now. He's not even an originally English man, but he cannot begin now to favor his country. The laws are there. Even Obama, when he was the president of America, he could not have favored the blacks against the whites. That is the way that even if you have an ethnic bigot in the presidency, can we make it practically impossible for him to abuse his office in such a way that will offend other sensibilities? So instead of looking for a Nigeria whereby Igbo man will accept the Yoruba man, Hausa man will accept the Igbo man, look, I'm going to tell you, you can try that experiment for the next 60 years. It will still not work. Let us elect a rule-based system instead.
Wow. So, well, a whole lot has been talked about this, and it's an eye-opener, IBB. But then, could this be why, there is this preference? The state of origin is more emphasized than the state of residence, as in all the points.
Well, that explains it, because identity, look, even when we abolish the state of origin, are we going to abolish language, for instance? Are we going to abolish accents? You and I know that a Yoruba man speaks Igbo before he speaks English, except for very highly educated ones. But you and I know that when Yoruba speak, they don't have to speak English for 5 minutes before you can pick up from their accent that they are Yorubas. If an Igbo man speaks English, he doesn't have to say it for more than 5 minutes before you know that he's an Igbo man. If an Hausa man speaks English, he doesn't have to. In fact, from the way he looks, in fact, there are people, once they look at you, they know where you are from. And so even if
I'm saying this because, I mean, one time, the vice president, then vice president of some administration, the Yemi Oshibajo, had called for replacing of the certificate of indigent with a certificate of residence or birth, saying that this would promote coercion. I mean, he also called for a more strong and more equitable justice rules, just that in aspect of that judicial system, and so that this tribal and religious ethnic affiliations will probably maybe reduce. But from all you are saying, I mean, it seems like there is something missing somewhere.
I think people are trying to legislate behavior.
Okay, you say something.
Yes, there are some things you can achieve with instruments of public policy, but there are certain elements of behavior you can't legislate. For instance, okay, if you say, let's remove that certificate of origin and replace it with place of residence, all right? When an Igbo man is running for governor of Lagos State, he doesn't have to do anything for you to know that he's an Igbo man.
All right, we'll come to that. Let's come to more of that. Let's quickly take the short break. When we come back, we'll deep more into the certificate of indigent, certificate of origin, and all, the drama with it. Take this break. We'll be right back.
So that's me on not Eagles FM, Super FM in Lagos, on the program called Spotlight, where we are looking at the topic, the concept of Nigerian nationhood. And I have been with the anchor who's been asking series of questions on identity management. I think Nigerians have an unworkable system and an impossible aspiration. Even Americans are not looking forward to a day where they can eschew their racism, which is their own form of tribalism. And Brits are not looking forward to that day. But we can have a rule-based system. Look, let's stop pretending about it. That day will not come when the Yorubas will wholeheartedly trust the Igbos. It will not come. That day will not come when Fulanis will suddenly wholeheartedly trust the Yorubas. It will not come. We will still have to be dealing with issues of identity, issues of mutual suspicion, and all of those things. So my primary argument is that we should build a system that factors in all of these differences, but sets the law that even when you are Igbo, there is something as a limit to your Igbo-ness. So let's get back to the interview.
Go to the phone lines are still open. Yes, it's still Spotlight, where we're discussing the concept of Nigerian nationhood. The concept of Nigerian nationhood. And we have Mr. Chima, Christian, the Executive Director, Africa's Morning Center for Public Policy and Good Governance. And the phone lines are open 0802 978 8003. 0802 978 8003. You also have 0802 502 7711. 0802 502 7711. Before we went on that break, you were telling Chima Christian about what the former Vice President Yemi Chima said. It's called for replacement of certificate of indigent with the certificate of residence or birth. And we're trying to relate this with what is happening where there are more emphasis on state of origin in our system today than the state of residence. Okay, you were digging deep more on that. The question.
Yes, I was saying that's a good aspiration to have, but I'm saying that okay, if you now replace it with place of residence, an Hausa man in Lagos will still look Hausa. He will, no matter how he does, he will still speak in a manner that will betray his original identity. All right, and then when he begins to speak, for instance, Yoruba with Hausa accent, Yorubas with original Yoruba accent will speak in their original Yoruba accent and tell themselves, look, this man is a foreigner here. And so what I'm trying to say is that people are trying to legislate behavior, and there are certain issues you can achieve with public policy issues, with law and other issues, but there are certain limits you can't cross. You can't ban away identity. And so if you start out in that thread, then what you want to do is let us all do away with Yoruba Igbo. Let us have a common identity. Nobody should speak Yoruba in Nigeria any longer. Let us speak one language. Nobody should speak Hausa again in Nigeria. Let us speak one language. Let us have one name. All right, that's what you mean by statehood. Let's have one common identity. And I'm saying that one common identity is different to build when you have varying degrees of identity. And this is not just with us. This started from right there, if you're a Bible scholar, from the Tower of Babel, when the language and the identity were confused. So what you can do is, even within the confused identity, you can still make things out to work a little bit. But I think that the instruments, that they don't understand the gravity of the problem we have. If they do understand the gravity of the problem we have, you will know that just replacing state of residence or state of origin with state of residence will barely scratch the surface and will not get to the result. How I wish it can be experimented for 5-10 years so people can see also the limitations of that public policy proposal.
So what should people then call citizens? How they would then refer to someone as a citizen? In a society by birth, is it by naturalization? Will it be marriage? Will it be like that?
Well, that question is there. So in some countries, they've evolved it over and over again. Like if I talk about what is happening in America now, you will try to pull me back to Nigeria. So I'm now trying to self-censor myself.
Yeah, because the system, I mean, one thing is we tend to, copy this, but I don't know if we're doing it the right way or it's not just working for us. Because the mentalities are different.
Yeah,
a normal Britain will queue for to buy a quill or queue to maybe buy something in the market. But Nigerians, we know, I mean, that queue, that patience, that process.
No. So Brits are also impatient, but what you have there is years and years of education and civilization. All right. So if you bring Brits to Nigeria and have them train here for 40 years, they will I can see many expatriates who have been here for so long. They break traffic lights more than Nigerians. So you also see that some of those things are there. But let me quickly answer to the earlier question. So if you look at trying to build societal cohesion, it's an impossible task. It's a fool's errand. You can't achieve it. There's no way you can achieve Yorubas to beat them out of their Yorubaness. Is just no way you can get Igbos to beat them out of their Igboness. There's no way you can get Fulanis to beat them out of their Fulaniness. But the issues are even deeper than that there are some identities that can coexist with each other, that the similarities are there and the mutual suspicion is limited. For instance, and I'll take you through history. If you notice, there is this kind of affinity between core northern Nigeria and Niger and Chad. You can't wish it away. And that was why when Tinubu and ECOWAS proposed to sanction Niger, to go to war with Niger, it was for many core northerners an affront. All right? And I can tell you for free, there is a little bit of affinity. You know what? A traditional Yoruba man would prefer to do business with a Benin Republic man or a Togolese compared to doing business with someone from the southeast. That I can tell you for free. But the original map of Africa was not drawn with this kind of things in mind. People just sat at Berlin conferences and drew maps of Africa. Sometimes they put in conflicting identities, highly competitive identities into one country, and they will keep fighting each other for the next 500 years. So what I'm saying is this, look at it critically and don't shut me down. I want you to listen with your mind open. All right. So what if the map of Africa, not just that of Nigeria, is redrawn a little bit? Since Hausas can deal better with Chadians, can we begin to look at regional expansion? Can we begin to put those identities that are easier to manage together? Imagine if you have put Pakistan and India as one country, what would they have become today? So some things are better managed, but when you can't get that level of cohesion or looseness, then make the unitary system a little bit at ease, so that core northerners can design the north the way they want to design it, and the southeast can look the way the southerners want it to look like, and southwest can look the way southwesterners want to, instead of forcing everybody to have this unitary structure that doesn't work. So that's my point, that you can't get over this identity issue. There is no way you can get Yorubas to accept Nigeria over Yoruba. You can't get Fulanis to accept Nigeria over. You can't get Igbos to accept. So when we understand that this is a human limitation and that it's not just happening here, it's happening everywhere in the world, then can we now begin to look at what we can achieve instead of setting impossible goals for ourselves? We have set impossible goals for ourselves for 60 years. We've not achieved it. Let us set new goals and try to achieve it.
Chima. You've been providing some very insightful opinions and ideas to the question of Nigerian nationhood. There was a question that Michael wanted to ask you before we went to the issue of tribalism, ethnicity, and all of that. And that's a question of when you look at Nigeria, and I'll give recent examples. Just yesterday, of course, you are aware of the crisis in Delta State that started on Thursday, or maybe even before then, that led to the killing of some soldiers and some other civilians. And that crisis has extended now by the state in the Nigerian military pursuit of those who they call the perpetrators of that crime in the Nigerian state. The governor of Delta State went to the Aso Villa. According to him, he said he went to brief the president on what was happening. And you find this happening so many times. Just this morning, I read that the governor of Kaduna State said he speaks with the president twice on the phone day on the Kaduna situation. And you know that there's been a lot of kidnapping in the last 2 weeks. Hundreds of people now are now victims of abducted by so-called bandits in that particular place. So whenever there's a crisis in the country, you find that governors are very quick to rush all the way to Abuja. You remember what happened in Ekiti in January when the students were kidnapped? The governor, the next day, was on his way to Abuja to speak to the president. So you find that governors are supposed to pretend over their own state as an independent entity in that sense. Treat the president as though the president is a monarch or a king. You find that in the way that they relate to him, in the way that they talk about him, in the way that they talk to him. And governors, even in their own state, you find that local government chairman treats them as though they are kings and monarchs. You remember that particular case from Ogun State last year, where a particular local government chairman made an allegation that they had not received their allocation for so many years. And after which, some of his colleagues who are supposed to be local government chairman as well went to meet the governor in Abeokuta, and they frustrated, in Yoruba we call it Yobano, apologizing to the governor that, that man who spoke on behalf of their union was speaking just for himself and not on behalf of other local government chairman in Ogun State. So, and people will say that we run a kind of cabinet democracy. You know what I mean? So, why is this so? Is this a result of maybe our history before when we were getting independence, because we had long years, hundreds of years of monarchies? Is that what we imported into all kind of democracy? Or people thought that, maybe we should have grown or have grown all of that tendencies to try to treat people who just were in office for a period of 4 years or 8 years as though they were absolutely monarchies. What is responsible for this kind of trait of behavior in our system?
So you've known that I'm not afraid of making unpopular opinions. I believe that Nigeria would have thrived as a monarchy far better than what we are doing under democracy. The democracy we have in Africa did not take account of our different idiosyncrasies. It did not take into account, for instance, in the Yoruba culture, that dobale is an important thread that you cannot write away with democratic norms. All right? There are some systems that are not democratic in nature. Even in the language is not democratic. The culture is not democratic. And you now want to copy and paste and let it work. That's on one part, so that the system we have did not take advantage or did not take cognizance of our different uniquenesses before designing a governance system for us. Now look at China and what China is doing with their system. Look at India and see what India is doing with their system. Look at the Middle East. Hardly will you find any democracy in the Middle East. But look at Dubai, look at UAE, look at even Oman, look at even Qatar, look at Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. How have made progress in the past 60 years? And we are trying to change presidents every now and then over the past 60 years. How far with us? How far have we achieved? So you see that this democracy we have does not take account of our uniqueness and our culture. But that's on one side. And then on the second side of it, there are certain weaknesses within our laws that have made local governments almost an operational extension of state governments. And there are also certain weaknesses in our laws that have made state governors almost special advisors to the president. For instance, you and I know that no governor is powerful enough to give an instruction even to an ordinary DPO. The police commissioner in a state receives instruction from the IGP of police. Whatever Asanwo-Olu can get any police commissioner in Lagos to do is what he can use leverage. You can bribe, you can negotiate, you can deploy influence here and there, you can make it best, you can't give an outright order. The order must come from Abuja. So if the governor of Delta State is going to Abuja, that's where the center of gravity is. He can't command any military commander and they will obey him. He can't command the police and they will obey him. He can't command civil defense and they will obey him. He can't even command federal road safety and they obey him. And then the state vigilante services is not even equipped, either by law or in terms of ammunition or arms, to engage this kind of issues. So the person that can give instructions to the Inspector General of Police, and the Inspector General of Police will now give instruction to the Commissioner of Police, is the President. And that's why anytime you have issues, you run to Abuja. You see now the point I was making earlier. Why can't we make governors, for instance, take charge of their different domains, so that if they have insecurity in their domains, they can respond to it without necessarily going to Abuja? Because the man in Abuja, if he sees, okay, it's Yoruba versus Yoruba, let them be killing themselves, he can look away. And the Yoruba governor cannot do anything on that. For instance, you also saw that when Jonathan was inflicting heavy casualty on Boko Haram, including people like El Rufai were saying that, oh, this is a man from the south trying to kill us in the north. But if you had empowered northern governors to deal with that, then it will be northern governors dealing with northern problem. And so the issue of mistrust will not come into that. Imagine if what Buhari did with the southeast, trying to douse the issue of agitations in the southeast. People were accusing him, oh, he's a Fulani man trying to kill the Igbos. And when he removed his hand from it, oh, they said he wants Igbos to kill themselves. So whatever you do, you will still be looked with that prism of identity. So there are several structural issues that have made it impossible or nearly impossible for people to exert total control of their respective domains. So that's why I'm happy at the constitutional review that is being proposed. If they are doing it with all seriousness, then one of the things I would love to see, and one of the things we are doing with Africa's Money Center, is to try to send memorandum, not just one memoranda to that constitutional review committee, to have them look at things like this. And many people have sent memoranda in times past, but unfortunately they have not had the lever to strike at the core issues bedeviling the country.
No, I wanted to make a point about that constitutional review committee, but you already went there anyway. So I'll just ask another important question about the point you made regarding Africa. You said in your opinion you do not think that democracies as we practice in this part of the world is best suited for us. They think that maybe monarchy should be better. But you know that when you have that kind of system, it gives them to autocratic or authoritarian tendencies from these people who are supposed to be leaders, who sometimes can turn into rulers. We see, the way the rule of law play out in some of these countries that they mentioned. Even in some countries in Africa, like in Rwanda, for example, where they say people like their president is exercising what they call benevolent democracy and all kinds of things. Do you think that we start to practice that kind of system in a country like Nigeria with enough tendencies to misuse of statutory power? Do you think that maybe that will work in some way, either to achieve any form of coercion, like you said before, that will not work, or any form of development in any sense? Because just looking at other systems that you referenced, do you think that if that is replicated in Nigeria, it will work in any form to advance us maybe economically, politically?
The history of Nigeria did not start in 1914. It definitely did not start in 1960. People have been existing. You study how they were existing before 1914, and you study how they're existing before 1916, and that will tell you who they are. All right. Before the invasion and this forceful feeding bottle governance system that they've given us. All right. So you study those things, and when people talk about democracies, you see there is nothing democratic about Nigeria's democracy. Everything you see in a military dictatorship is at work here. Is there freedom of speech? Is there freedom to choose who your leaders are? Is there freedom to protest? Every other thing you fear in a military dictatorship happen in Nigeria. What then are you talking about democracy? Do you have press freedom in Nigeria? There are things I can't say on your platform. If I say it here, NBC will shut you guys down the next day. Do you have freedom of speech? Do you have a free media? So you don't have all the benefits of democracy, but you have all the limitations of democracy. Why do I say that? All the other things that are supposed to help democracy work are not in full. Everything democracy is supposed to give the citizens, it does not give them. But now the bottom line is that in a democratic system, it is difficult to achieve consensus. Look, Nigeria has been trying to change their... Do you know that no civilian president has altered the structure of Nigeria ever? Every major structural change in Nigeria, whether it's creation of additional states, whether it's change of constitution, has been always done by the military. And there's a reason. Because democracy, it is difficult, if not near impossible, to form a major consensus. So you are in a place where you are not enjoying the benefits of the so-called democracy, but you are also in a place where you don't have that kind of cohesive power to exert your will on the nation. Now, the 1999 Constitution is as a result of military exertion of power and influence. The creation of 36 states, exertion of military influence. Creation of 30 states, exertion of military influence. Dissolution of the 1963 Constitution. So if you leave Nigeria the way it is with this kind of democracy, we will be talking about constitutional review 60 years from now and we will still not do it. And so what I'm saying is that since it has been agreed that you are not practicing democracy, either in terms of what the citizens are supposed to benefit or what the systems that can help democracy. Okay, go and read Paul Collier's Wars, Guns and Votes. Paul Collier is, by the way, a seminal political economist. And he's one of the brilliant guys doing this thing. And they travel around from country to country. And he has said with his researchers that there are conditions that must be met before democracy can work for any nation. Those are 1, literacy rate, and 2, income of the people. What is franchise to someone in, for instance, Zamfara State? Has never look at the out-of-school children there. You saw the statistics that was just released.
Yes,
someone who has not been to school, has never been to any class in his life, don't know where his next meal is coming from, doesn't even have a television, let alone understanding what the economic policies of Buhari or economic policies of Tinubu, and then you tell him he has a franchise that can be compromised with 500 naira. That's why you are shouting no vote buying, no vote buying. People you are telling don't sell your votes, their votes can be compromised with 2,000 and you tell them that you have a franchise. Franchise for what? So you don't have a franchise that can be, if it can be compromised by 500 naira, it's not franchise. If it can be compromised by mere ethnic appellation, it is not franchise. If it can be compromised by mere religious appellation, it is not franchise. There were some people, the only thing you needed to tell them to get their votes is a miloko. Is that a franchise? So what I'm telling you that you are dealing with and calling democracy in Nigeria, it's not working. Now, compare that to what you have in UAE, where you could say that they are not enjoying dividends of democracy. Who is the Nigerian citizen that enjoys more dividends of a good country, more than what UAE is giving their citizen, more than what Qatar is giving their citizen, more than what Oman is giving their citizen? Close your eyes and imagine for a minute that Obasanjo is still the president of Nigeria till today. Close your eyes and see where Nigeria would have gotten to without subjecting him to periodic elections. And then close your eyes and imagine what Rwanda would have been if Paul Kagame was ousted out of office after 8 years and someone with maybe Buhari's kind of credentials overtakes the affairs of that nation just 8 years after their major civil war. And just so look at it. Even the stable democracies you have in Europe now, many of those stable democracies did not achieve stability until years and years of monarchy. It was years and years of monarchy that helped them to build democracy in Europe. Look at France. France used monarchy to achieve education. It was until they achieved education that educated people now started angling for democracy. Look at what is happening in China. China used monarchy to achieve a kind standard of living. Believe me, Chinese monarchy will not, or this their unitary system, will not last up to 40 years before it is pulled down by the people, because they have gotten the economic power and the literacy to achieve that. Look at what is happening in the Middle East. Believe me, their monarchy will not last up to 50 years because the people now have money and they have intellect to argue. Look at what was achieved in Libya before people started pulling down Gaddafi. He gave them education, he gave them economic power, and they pulled him down. That is what happens. But Nigeria is not in a place where we can get economic power and education. So until you get that citizens to have economic power that you can no longer bribe them with 5,000, you get them to have education that you can no longer tell them that he is not a Miloko and he's a Miloko. And so democracy cannot work for you here until you meet those thresholds that researchers have said that these are the minimum threshold. And I'm telling you that monarchy, what you call monarchy, can help you achieve that threshold in such a short time. China would not have achieved this progress in 40 years if they have your kind of democracy. UAE would not have achieved what they achieved. Now go and tell me one third world country that achieved progress with what you call democracy in 40 years, and we'll come back to celebrate them.
Some interesting points there. I wanted to take you up on something. You made reference to this data, literacy data released just a few days ago, and you're talking about how some people living in certain part of the country will have access to the same content as you, who is more educated, who is more economically empowered. There's this argument I've had with a few friends about who is actually qualified to vote, and should it be on the basis of how much tax you pay, or your age, or your economic status, or the level of your education. Some would even argue that people should not be allowed to vote unless they have a knowledge of mathematics and economics. But these are further conversations we'll have maybe some other time on the show. We also didn't get the time to ask you about, the census. Last time we had the census was in 2006. There should have been another one in 2016, but it was bundled by the last administration. And we hope that we'll have maybe one anytime soon. But I know that, of course, you have a lot to say about all of this. Maybe sometime next week or until then, we'll have you on the show again to have to give your opinions about all of this.
And thank you so very much for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
All right, it's been a wonderful time to have you on the show. The Executive Director of Africa is Morning Center for Public Policy and Good Governance, Chima. Thank you very much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
All right, the Lagos to Nigeria is that we call it a day.
So that's how we ended the interview on Super FM in Lagos. And my fundamental argument is that what you guys have been told is democracy is a system that the West has used to imprison you. You can't get out of it. You can't. You can't. You can't. America, when they started what they call democracy, the population of whites to black is 9 to whites. But you needed 4 black votes to equal 1 white vote. They didn't even allow blacks to vote. And when they started allowing them to vote, they still minimized the impact of their votes. They didn't even allow uneducated people to vote. Go and read the history. But today we have democracy. Every Dick, Tom and Harry can vote. But people who can't spell their names. People who can't speak one. People who can't reason. All you have to tell them is that this person is an infidel. You can compromise their votes with telling them that this person is an infidel. Because if they had been educated, they will tell you, no, he's an infidel, but his economic policies is more sound than yours. How did Buhari benefit the North? How did Buhari benefit the North? Yes, the North has had the longest stay in presidency. Has it benefited the ordinary Northerner? But if the ordinary Northerner is not educated to that point where he could begin to reason, then what you call democracy will continue to work against him. So that was my fundamental argument in the interview. And I thank you so much for watching. My name is Chima Christian. Africa's Morning will come. If you found this interview interesting, please share so that others will, for instance, benefit from some of the things you are saying. Because some of the mental models we are running our democracies by cannot achieve the kind of results we want to see. Thank you so very much. Africa's Morning is at hand.